In a small, dusty town nestled between rolling hills and a winding river, there lived a man named Elias Thorne. Elias was a stern, hard-working blacksmith who had spent his life hammering iron into tools and horseshoes for the local farmers. His wife had passed away years ago during childbirth, leaving him to raise their only daughter, Amelia, alone. Amelia was a bright-eyed girl of 12, with curly auburn hair that caught the sunlight like autumn leaves, and a spirit as fierce as the forge's flames. Elias loved Amelia in his own rough way, but life had hardened him. The town was poor and work was scarce. He believed that the world was no place for dreams or softness. Survival demanded grit and obedience. Amelia, however, was full of curiosity. She spent her days helping in the smithy, but her nights were filled with stories. She read from tattered books, borrowed from the village schoolmaster. She dreamed of building things, not just tools, but grand machines that could change the world. One fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Amelia returned home late from gathering wildflowers by the river. She had lost track of time, sketching ideas for a water-powered wheel that could grind grain faster than the old mill. Elias, exhausted from a long day and worried by her absence, exploded in anger. "This is no life for foolish dreams, girl," he bellowed. "You're wasting time when you should be learning to survive. Out! If you can't follow the rules of this house, find your own path." Tears streaming down her face, Amelia pleaded. But Elias's pride was unyielding. He thrust a small sack of bread and her few belongings into her hands and shut the door. The sound of the latch echoed like a final hammer strike. Amelia stood in the twilight, the world suddenly vast and terrifying. She was young, but the fire in her heart refused to dim. "I'll show him," she whispered to herself. "I'll build something greater than he can imagine." With nowhere else to go, Amelia wandered to the edge of town, where the river met the road leading to the bustling city of Riverton, miles away. She slept under the stars that night, her mind racing with plans. The next morning, hunger gnawing at her belly, she hitched a ride on a farmer's cart headed to the city. The journey took 2 days, filled with bumpy roads and the farmer's gruff stories of hard times. When they arrived, Riverton sprawled before her like a living beast, smokestacks belching black clouds, streets teeming with workers, and the clang of machinery everywhere. Amelia's first days in the city were a blur of desperation. She begged for scraps and odd jobs, her small hands blistered from scrubbing floors in taverns. One kind soul, an elderly seamstress named Mrs. Hargrove, took pity on her and offered a cot in her tiny shop in exchange for mending clothes. "You're too young to be alone, child," Mrs. Hargrove said, her eyes soft with concern. But Amelia insisted she could work. She learned to sew with precision, her nimble fingers turning rags into wearable garments. Yet, her dreams lingered. In stolen moments, she sketched inventions on scraps of fabric gears, levers, automated looms that could weave faster than any human. Months turned into years. Amelia grew taller, her frame leaned from labor. At 14, she left Mrs. Hargrove's shop for better pay at a textile mill on the city's outskirts. The mill was a monstrous place, dim-lit halls filled with the roar of machines, air thick with cotton dust that made workers cough endlessly. Amelia started as a bobbin girl, dodging between looms to replace empty spools. The work was grueling, 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. For pennies, many girls her age collapsed from exhaustion, but Amelia observed everything. She saw inefficiencies, tangled threads, broken parts, workers injured by faulty gears, One night, after her shift, Amelia approached the foreman, Mr. Grady, a burly man with a perpetual scowl. "Sir, I have an idea to fix the looms," she said, holding out a crude drawing. "If we add a safety catch here, it won't jam as often." Mr. Grady laughed, dismissing her as a silly girl. But when a loom broke the next day, causing a costly delay, he grudgingly tried her suggestion. It worked. Word spread, and soon Amelia was promoted to assistant mechanic, repairing machines instead of just tending them. By 16, Amelia had saved enough to rent a small room in a boarding house. She enrolled in night classes at the Mechanics Institute, where grizzled inventors taught the basics of engineering. She devoured books on steam power, hydraulics, and metallurgy, often staying up until dawn. Her hands, once soft, were now calloused and scarred, but her mind was sharper than ever. She experimented in a makeshift workshop in her room, building prototypes from scavenged parts. One invention, a self-threading needle, earned her a small prize at a local fair. Enough money to buy better tools? Life wasn't easy. The city was rife with dangers, pickpockets, harsh winters, and the ever-present threat of illness from the polluted air. Amelia fell sick once with a fever that nearly claimed her. But a fellow student, a young man named Thomas, nursed her back to health. Thomas became her friend, sharing her passion for innovation. Together, they dreamed of starting their own workshop. But tragedy struck when Thomas was injured in a factory accident, losing an arm to a malfunctioning press. "This world chews up dreamers," he said bitterly. Amelia's resolve hardened. She would change that. At 18, Amelia quit the mill to apprentice under Mr. Elias Hawthorne, a renowned inventor who owned a small machine shop. Hawthorne was eccentric, with wild white hair and a workshop cluttered with half-finished contraptions. He saw potential in Amelia and taught her advanced techniques, welding, blueprinting, even basic electricity from the newfangled generators. "The future is in automation, lass," he told her. "Machines that think for themselves." Under Hawthorne's guidance, Amelia designed her first major invention, an automated spinning mule that could produce yarn twice as fast with half the labor. They patented it together, and a large factory bought the rights for a handsome sum. Amelia used her share to invest in her own small venture, a repair shop specializing in factory machinery. She hired 2 assistants, both young women like her, eager to learn. Word of Amelia's ingenuity spread. Factories across Riverton sought her services. She fixed broken assembly lines, optimized production flows, and even consulted on new builds. By 22, her shop had expanded into a full-fledged workshop. Employing 10 people, she named it Thorne Innovations, a subtle nod to her father, though bitterness still lingered in her heart. One day, a telegram arrived from her hometown. Elias was ill, the forge failing. Amelia hesitated, but compassion won. She returned, finding her father frail and regretful. "I was wrong, Amelia," he whispered from his bed. "I drove you away to toughen you, but you were already strong." They reconciled, and Elias shared stories of her mother, a dreamer like her. When he passed peacefully that winter, Amelia inherited the old smithy, which she transformed into a branch of her business. Back in Riverton, challenges mounted. Competitors, mostly men who resented a woman's success, spread rumors and undercut her prices. A fire, suspiciously set, destroyed part of her workshop. Amelia rebuilt, stronger. She lobbied for better worker safety laws, drawing from her own experiences. At 25, she married a kind engineer named Samuel, who supported her ambitions. They had a daughter, whom Amelia vowed to nurture, not harden. Years blurred into decades. Amelia's company grew exponentially. She pioneered assembly line techniques for automobiles, drawing interest from industrial tycoons. By 30, Thorne Innovations was a mid-sized factory producing machinery for textiles, automobiles, and even early aircraft parts. She employed hundreds, emphasizing fair wages, education for workers' children, and innovations that reduced drudgery. The Great War came and went, boosting demand for her products. Amelia navigated shortages and rationing, emerging stronger. At 40, she bought out a rival factory, becoming one of the city's largest employers. Her hair now streaked with gray, she mentored young inventors, especially women, creating scholarships in her mother's name. Finally, at 50, Amelia stood at the helm of Thorne Industries, a sprawling complex of factories spanning multiple cities. She was the owner, a self-made magnate whose story inspired books and articles. Reflecting on her journey, she visited her old hometown, where a statue honored her. Hard work and dreams, she told a crowd of wide-eyed children. That's the forge of success. Amelia lived to 80, passing the empire to her daughter. Her legacy? Not just factories, but a world where a young girl could rise from rejection to triumph.